Mavis the Class 04 was very excited. She had just been overhauled at Crovan's Gate, and the Fat Controller was popping round to give her an important assignment. Topham arrived aboard a grey diesel locomotive that Mavis had never seen before. Good afternoon, Mavis.
Hello, sir. I must say I've never seen a locomotive like this before. What's your name?
My name is Dennis, and I come from the southern region.
I thought as much, since your wheels look very similar to what Neville has, and he's a bullied Q1.
You look as if you don't have any wheels. Oh, wait, I just noticed the side plates. Now, Mavis, I've brought Dennis here on trial, and I want you to introduce him to the working environments here on Sodor. Once the workmen have given you the once-over, and verified that you're good to go, you will take Dennis back west with you and show him the brewery sidings at Sudbury. For some reason, I nearly said Sunbury, even though we're not in Melbourne.
And we couldn't run to Sunbury even if we were there in Melbourne. Damn those inconsistent track gauges.
Wait a minute. A brewery? Beer? I don't want to shunt that disgusting piss water.
I wouldn't defy Sir Topham if I were you, Dennis. He's a man whose bad side you don't want to end up on.
Now, Dennis, if you can prove to me that you're a reliable locomotive, you'll become a permanent addition to the North Western Railway's fleet. But if you're lazy, I'll send you packing. Is that clear? Crystal clear, sir. But Mavis wasn't so sure. She couldn't quite pick it, but something seemed off about Dennis's character. It wasn't long before Mavis was given the all-clear to leave Crovan's Gate, and she took the newcomer back along the main line with her. For fuck's sake, this is taking forever!
Well, welcome to the jungle, where you'll have to learn a little patience, dear boy.
Oh god, don't start referencing Guns N' Roses, please!
I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, I can't help having a top speed of only 25 miles per hour. That's just how I was designed. And look, we're almost at Wellsworth Station. This is the junction for Edwards Branch Line, and the brewery is not far down the branch.
When they arrived in the yard, Mavis and Dennis went for a spin on the turntable and dropped off their wagons for Edward. It wasn't long before the two diesels arrived at Sudbury.
Right, Dennis, this is the brewery Sir Topham wants you to work at.
But why? This place looks like it could easily be handled by a Ruston 48 DS.
Well, we don't have anything that small here on Sodor. Not on the standard gauge lines anyway. The only Sudbury and Ruston is on the 2-foot 3-inch gauge Skarloey Railway.
So, what am I supposed to be doing here?
Topham and the brewery manager want you to shunt wagons from those two sidings next to the factory over to the sidings by the pier, or vice versa. Then once the train's ready to go, you'll take it back up to Wellsworth, where one of the mainline locomotives will collect it. And then you'll bring empty wagons back here.
Wait, I thought you said this was Edward's branch line. Why isn't he introducing me to this yard? And why can't you do this job instead of me?
To answer your first question, it's because there are weight restrictions on this brewery spur. We're actually the largest locomotives allowed on it. As for your second question, I can't do this job because I'm normally working on Thomas's branch line.
Okay, I guess that makes sense.
And one more thing, Dennis. That shed to your right will be your home, since you'll be the dedicated brewery shunter.
Alright, this doesn't sound too bad. A simple shunt, simple shed, and only a short run up to the main line. I think I'm going to like this place.
That's good. I'll let the Fat Controller know that you're happy with the brewery shunt. And just so you don't get confused, the Fat Controller is just a nickname for Sir Topham hat.
Duly noted. And with that, Mavis left the brewery manager to help Dennis and trundled back up the branch. She passed a message about the bullied shunter on to Edward, who, in turn, passed it on to the Fat Controller. Later that week, she was back on the Farquhar branch, and told the lads about the new engine. It was a quiet Sunday morning when the Class 04 was chatting with Thomas at the top station, while Percy and Toby were out pulling trains. So Mavis, how is Dennis getting on at Sudbury?
Well enough. Last time I was updated.
I must say, it's a bloody good thing the Fat Controller finally got a dedicated shunter for that brewery. I was getting sick of how often one of us got called away to Sudbury at short notice. Anyone would think that Topham forgot about potentially using Bill and Ben instead.
Well, I understand why he didn't choose them, since they're already quite busy with the China clay trains. And I prefer to help Dennis rather than those annoying saddle tank engines, especially after I had to deal with Bill bitching about Ben's blasted buffers back in 2002.
Oh god, the less we think about Season 6, the better. Anyway, what will you be up to tomorrow?
I think the Fat Controller wants me to check in on Dennis at some point and see how he's settling in.
Sounds good. I dare say I'll just be taking passengers with Annie and Clarabelle again. And it's good to see you taking a leaf from Toby's book, in a sense. A few days later, Mavis took a train of empty fuel tankers down to Brendam. Edward was there to greet her, but he didn't look happy.
What's the matter, Edward? Do I offend?
No, Mavis, I'm not upset at you. Why would I be anyway? No, it's Dennis again.
What do you mean, again?
It's been nothing but confusion and delay on my line ever since he arrived. Anyone would think the bastard is bunking off work or something. And I've heard of Dennis the Menace, but this is ridiculous.
How is his laziness interrupting you, Boko, and the Bagnall twins?
Boko says that he was held up by Dennis absolutely crawling along the section from Wellsworth to Lower Sudbury, which has a knock-on effect for the passenger services too, and he can only be bothered taking no more than 3 wagons at a time. I've lost count of how many times the passengers have filed complaints about this.
Oh dear, I just knew something wasn't right with him. He is hoping he can improve himself. Now I suppose I'd better get these tankers shunted for reloading.
But despite Mavis's optimism, Dennis continued to be a lazy sod. And as time went on, Edward and Boko grew increasingly tired of the bullied shunter's poor performance, so the K2's crew telephoned the Fat Controller as soon as they got the chance. It wasn't long before he sent for Mavis again, who got another update on the situation from Edward as she met him again at Wellsworth.
Dennis, this is an intervention. You need to stop breaking people's necks. Dennis, Edward tells me he's had it with all the disruptions you've caused to his branch line. You need to stop being lazy and get back to work, or else you'll be sent to the scrapyard like your twin brother Norman. I won't hesitate to take you there myself, especially since it's only a short way back up to the branch. And I shan't be fussy on where I tell the workmen to start cutting.
Mavis's threat was so disturbing to Dennis that he was rendered completely speechless. Before the silver shunter regained his composure, there was a long silence.
Well, Dennis, what have you got to say for yourself?
How do you know about Norman?
Driver showed me a photograph of him. It was in some book about obscure diesel locomotives. I can't remember the title.
Oh, all right. I suppose I've got some explaining to do.
You don't say!
Norman and I were built in 1949, but separated immediately after construction. I was sent off to an industrial site not far up the Cumbrian coast from Barrow-in-Furness, while BR kept him at Ashford. I didn't want to work at Sellafield, and spent most of my time lazing around in the hope that they would send me back to Ashford. But in the end, they gave up and contacted the Fat Controller with a view to selling me. That's why he said I was brought here on trial in the first place.
So were you thinking that you'd be sent back to Ashford if you were acting lazy here?
Precisely.
Well, I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but going back to Ashford would be pointless now. You see, the book also mentioned that Norman was scrapped in 1959 and Ashford Works closed in 1982.
I had a nasty feeling in the back of my mind that this is how things would turn out. But I will thank you for at least clarifying the situation.
You're welcome, Dennis. Shall we go back to Wellsworth and explain your situation to Edward and the Fat Controller?
Not just yet. I need to wait for these wagons to be reloaded. Then we can go back. They arrived at Wellsworth to find Edward and the Fat Controller waiting for them. Sir Topham had arrived aboard Henry's passenger train, which called in while Mavis was down at the brewery.
So Dennis has got something to say.
Indeed I do. I want to apologise for being so lazy recently. I had a reality check when Mavis told me about what happened to Norman. If you're being genuine, then I accept your apology. And if you want to join our fleet as a permanent addition, I will arrange a purchase agreement with Sellafield in due course. Thank you very much, sir. You know, I initially scoffed at the Ashford paint shop giving me the number 11001 by mistake. It should actually be 11002. But now I'll wear Norman's number as a tribute to him. I just wish I could have met him one last time. I understand your situation, Dennis, for I too am a sole survivor, without referencing the Asia song that's also called Soul Survivor. While I don't forgive you for causing all the disruption to my branch liners of late, I just hope that you can turn yourself around in the future. Can't do that, I'm afraid. Why ever not? Because I am unable to control the turntable with my mind.
At least you've got a good sense of humour.
From that day forward, Dennis was a changed locomotive. Well, not in a technical sense because he was still a diesel. Even though he barely knew what Norman was like, he was still determined to honour the legacy of his deceased brother. As time went on, he was still used primarily as the Sudbury brewery shunter, but he would sometimes be called upon to help Thomas take supply trains up the Farquhar branch, with said supplies going to a schoolhouse that was under construction near the top station. Mavis was very happy to see her new friend working hard at last, and remained hopeful that Dennis would continue to be a reliable locomotive for a good long while.